Hey everybody, I am the company's expert and welcome to my video on business communication. We're going to talk about business communication and how it relates to running a business, whether that business is very small, like a side hustle, or it's very large, like a multi-million-dollar multinational corporation. We're going to cover business communication, what it is, its pros and cons, and we're also going to talk about the people that specialize in business communication, and we're going to talk about their pros and cons, at least from a very general perspective. So let's dive in. So what is business communication? Well, basically, business communication is an area of business that specializes in communication. I hope that explained it for you. No, business communication, it teaches you the absolute basics of how to communicate. Things like how to write an email, how to deliver bad news, how to use formal language in a professional setting, how to write a report, how to do things like public speaking if you're so that you can do a presentation or you can do a pitch, things like this. It also covers a lot of theory of communication and things that can come in useful in a professional setting. So that's what it is. And I want to emphasize the fact that it covers the basics, okay? Now, the thing about business communication is that you can take a course in business communication from pretty much every educational institute on the planet, okay? And even every pseudo-educational institute on the planet will probably offer some kind of course or certificate in this. It's extremely common. So this is very popular and quite well known. So that's what it is. Now, let's talk about its pros and cons. Okay, now in the pros category, okay, what you can do with this, what it's used for, is you can take somebody and you can teach them the basics of how to communicate and conduct themselves professionally within a workplace setting. Okay, so you can take someone who's never been in a workplace, they don't know how to act, and you can teach them basically the expectations for how you would communicate and have it not be a problem. And the great thing about organizational or communication, business communication in this setting is that it does include some elements of organizational behavior, which is another area of business. But knowing some of these concepts is extremely important because it helps explain the things that we see in organizations. Okay, so this is a useful thing. It's a way of ensuring that your employees have at least a basic understanding of how to write emails, how to talk to people, and so on. Okay, so it's ultimately a good thing. However, as you're probably guessing, there are some cons associated with this too. Now, let me ask you a question, okay? Think of a typical organization, maybe a workplace that you've been in. What did you think of the quality of the communication? You know, whenever they announced that there was a new policy, or wherever they gave you a response to a question or anything like that, what do you think of the quality of that communication? Did it make you feel good about communicating? Did you enjoy being in that environment? Did it make you buy into everything that they were doing and all the changes they were bringing down the pike? I would venture a guess that most people would probably say no to that. And that, to me, illustrates a major con with business communication. And that is that, as I said before, it only covers the basics. Okay, communication is a huge, huge topic, and it goes very, very deep. And unfortunately, the way this material is taught in the vast majority of situations is they only cover the very basics. They cover chapter 1 of the book on how to communicate, okay? And it doesn't go nearly far enough. Now, that's my opinion, okay? But to further explain, let me put it to you this way. Here are some of the things I think should be taught, and they should be included within business communication, but in the vast majority of situations, they are not, okay? Things like interpersonal skills, okay? It's one thing knowing how to write an email, for example, that communicates some information, but it's another thing entirely to be able to do it in such a way that the recipient doesn't get upset upon reading it, right? Interpersonal communications, being able to do it in person, that is not taught. If you send emails to a bunch of people and you succeed in communicating the information to them, but a side effect is that every recipient of your emails ends up not liking you and not wanting to work with you, I would say that's a pretty important element. That is not covered in the vast majority of situations. Another major area that I would argue is important is simply how to write. I am using the English language to communicate with you right now. If you are in a business environment that predominantly uses English as the language of exchange, being able to use correct spelling and grammar, I think would be important. And being able to string a sentence together, I think would be an important element of communication skills. That is not taught. So consequently, you get people that can't string a sentence together, passing courses on business communication, thinking that they are great communicators. I find this to be an issue. Also, things like charisma, things like how to motivate people, things like how to persuade people, and things like some basic elements of leadership are also not a part of this. Okay, if you're training supervisors and you put them through a course in business communication, you might think that, okay, I'm getting them some training to be more effective leaders and more effective supervisors. Well, unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case in the vast majority of situations because they're not learning that stuff. So I would argue that to really be effective, this area needs to include more. Okay, just learning the absolute basics, in my opinion, is not enough. So that's the big con I would put forward for this topic in general and the way it manifests itself in the real world. Now, let's talk about the people who specialize in business communication and the people that have qualifications in this. Let's talk about their pros and cons, generally speaking. Obviously, there's exceptions to this, but generally, I've noticed a few things. I myself used to teach business communication in a university and a couple of colleges, just kind of on the side for a few years there. And I can really contrast what is taught in schools when you cover this topic at different levels versus what are the needs of a lot of businesses, whether they're large, small, and whatever industry they're in. Okay. Now, one of the pros of people that have gone through training in business communication is that you can take maybe a younger person who has never had a career job in their lives, and you can run them through this course. And, before they took the course, they might have had no idea how to act in a professional setting, okay, in a workplace. But after they take this course, they will at least be able to conduct themselves in a somewhat professional way. They will be somewhat mature, and they will at least be able to communicate in a professional kind of way, and it won't be an issue with their management or their coworkers or, fellow team members or anything like this, okay? They can get by. So that's a good thing. I've noticed that about people that have taken this. Their expectations of how they're supposed to behave and how they're supposed to communicate seem to be more or less there. Okay. However, I have noticed some cons with people that have specialized in this area or have gotten qualifications in this area, and the big one is that, as I've stated, the way this is taught, it's usually only covering the basics. A trap that some people can fall into is that they end up thinking arrogantly that the basics, what they know, that's all there is. Okay, and that is certainly not true. If you don't really understand what I'm talking about, imagine the typical executive, okay? And imagine how the typical business executive communicates, and contrast that to the way a typical line employee communicates. Okay. Now, a typical executive, obviously there are exceptions to this, but a typical executive that perhaps has been trained in business school, okay, when it comes to their communication, we can see a lot of traits that they have that a lot of line employees typically don't have. Okay, first of all, executives are generally speaking, they're generally articulate. They can express themselves very clearly, very efficiently, and they can do it in a very positive way. So what I mean by that is that they know how to not only to express themselves well, but they have the ability to bring up in a conversation, they can bring up perhaps a sensitive issue, but in such a way that it's professional and it doesn't feel awkward, okay? They can deliver bad news in a way that is professional and doesn't feel that awkward, okay? It's not blunt, it's not brash, it's very professional, very smooth, and they do it in such a way, or they can do it in such a way that the other person still wants to interact with them, okay? And after the interaction is complete, the other person will look forward to interacting with that executive again, okay? They have the skills to do this. They can write very well, they can speak very well, they can do public speaking very well, they can persuade people, and so on. So there's a lot of skills there, okay? And what I've seen is some people kind of think that just because they've taken a course in business communication, there's nothing further to learn in terms of personal communication, interpersonal skills, and professional communication, and that's not true. So obviously not everybody thinks that way, but I have encountered a lot of people that do. So that would be one drawback of the people who do this, or a possible drawback. Anyway, I just wanted to leave you on that note. This is business communication is a very positive thing for business. If you train your employees in this, it gives them a certain amount of professionalism. But I would argue that if you went further than the basics, and you trained a lot of your people in this, most organizations have a lot of highly capable individuals and people that are ambitious and they have the ability to do more. And if you tack on incredible communication skills and incredible interpersonal skills, that can enhance your organization tremendously. You can improve the quality of the salespeople. You can improve the quality of the operations people. You can improve communication within your organization so that bad news can travel faster and solutions can be found collectively to fix things a lot easier. And the knockoff effects are tremendous, especially when communicating outside your organization to customers, to suppliers, to partners. There's incredible advantages in having every type of employee having great communication skills. And this is the beginning of that. If you go a step further, you can really add a ton of value. So I hope you found that interesting. Thank you so much for listening this long. You guys are awesome. I went a bit longer on this video, but I hope you will stick with me for the rest of this series where I cover the different or the major areas of business and how they affect the running of the business. Thanks so much, and don't forget to subscribe. Take care.